Say, first of all, as I open my comments, that this is a real first for me. The first time that I've ever addressed a group from the pulpit. I may tend to pontificate at times, as do most professors, but this has been my first opportunity to do so in a religious setting. Of course, I realize that Norwegian Lutherans do not pontificate. But as one coming from an Italian heritage, I can be forgiven if I do. After all, if every American can hope to grow up to be president, then every Italian can hope to grow up to be pope. Once, of course, they decide to stop discriminating against women for both jobs. I want to talk to you today, a few minutes, about elections and about the problems of making choices. All of us go through life, I think, either making choices or trying to avoid making them, as the case may be. Most of you students are right now very conscious, I think, of making choices, because you are in that stage of life when you are constantly being forced to choose among alternatives that you realize will affect your entire lives. I have seen some of you agonizing over choice of major, thinking that this choice somehow will define the future course of your life. I have seen some of you seniors suffering, literally, not sure where to go from here and caught up among several alternatives. Again, choices. I think that the sensitivity of most students to the problems of making choices and the awareness of the seriousness of the choices that you have to make now is a reason why students today are so concerned about the problems of choice in elections, especially in the presidential election. There was a time, not very long ago, when college students appeared to be primarily caught up in themselves and somewhat oblivious of life around them, especially of political and social problems. But I think such times are gone, at least for the time being. And students are concerned, are involved, and are looking to candidates in this political year to provide them with concrete alternatives, to give them a basis for choice. And in some cases, you are frustrated. Why? A variety of reasons. Some of you have said, my favorite candidate or my first choice is not running, and I'm not enthusiastic about any of the men who are running. Others have expressed frustration because none of the candidates seems to offer a clear-cut alternative. There seems to be nothing concrete on which to grasp. And indeed, I must say that as I watch and listen to all three candidates almost every day, and sometimes several times a day, I'm cloudy on where the candidates stand on some of the issues. For example, all of the candidates say they are for law and order. But what does that mean? That, which has become the major issue of this campaign, in a sense is a slogan of what I'm going to call esoteric communication, in which everyone means something different. Another point, Vietnam. All of the candidates want to end the war in Vietnam, but no one says how. Because of the sensitivity of the Paris talks, no one wants to offer concrete solutions. But would they offer concrete solutions if the Paris talks weren't going on? I'm not sure. Every candidate has promised us some kind of tax relief. Here they differ on the kind. There is a choice. But every one of the candidates also promises us lots of new programs, which will require lots of new money. They seem only to differ on who will administer these programs, the federal government or the state and the local governments, and so on down the issues. Yet the doubts that we have about making responsible choices based on clear alternatives are not unique to 1968. This is in fact a byproduct of the American style of campaigning. A style which I am going to call esoteric communication. Now, what do I mean by that? That is communication between candidates and people, but not a direct presentation of ideas and issues. In brief, it is the art either of talking about issues without saying anything about them, or the art of saying one thing while really meaning another. In a sense, the candidates are forced into such a position by the fact that the talents it takes to be president are not the same as the talents it takes to win elections. What are some of the talents required to be president? I'll bet you all could give us dozens. Let me just suggest a few talents it takes to be president. Mature judgment, experience in governmental activities, administrative ability, the ability to persuade Congress, the ability to listen to a variety of opinions and to make decisions quickly and definitively, the ability to take firm positions and to stick to them, or to give way if those positions seem untenable, the ability to handle men while working from a superior position yet making them feel important, the ability to communicate with leaders of foreign countries, an awareness of the major domestic problems of our time, incredible stamina, and good health. Except for the ability to handle men and the ability to organize, the awareness of major problems, and the incredible stamina, few of these talents are required to win elections. In the age of television, elections have taken on a new dimension, and certain attributes are now necessary to win. Campaigning is conducted via TV appearances directly, like the talkathons that were on all last evening, by televised rallies in auditoriums, and by public demonstrations also televised by the newscasts. In other words, the campaign is conducted in two arenas. In the streets, through personal contact, mostly handshaking, and in our living room via TV. What talents are needed? What skills are required? For street rallies, one apparently needs good, strong hands and a good supply of Band-Aids to cover cuts on them, plus a good smile and a loud voice. Now, I don't know that any of these are needed to be president, really, except maybe good, strong hands. But for TV, one enters a whole new range of talents and skills, the first of which is that one be telegenic or photogenic. We are not selecting Mr. America, yet appearance on TV has become one of the key factors. If in 1960 the Nixon beard was a problem, that problem has disappeared by 1968 because of the use of something called a beard stick, whatever that is. Also, we find that all of the candidates who are rather average-looking men in middle age have far less gray hair than they used to have. And we also find that they are remarkably wrinkle-free for men of their age. The fact that Humphrey's eyes are sensitive to TV lights, for example, presented him with many problems during the early part of campaign. Most of the time he came across on TV as if he were squinting or angry about something. Recently, they apparently have solved the problem, and Humphrey's eyes are now looking at you directly, clearly, and wide open. Also needed for TV is a very definite theatrical presence, the ability to project, the understated gesture, the talent of looking directly at your audience while reading from a script, something that is especially difficult if you wear glasses. Try it. Yet any weakness in these areas could ruin a performance on TV, which is what it is, a performance. Is it any wonder that often the most effective campaigners are TV and movie stars who understand the medium? How did Ronald Reagan get his start? By campaigning effectively for Goldwater. Everyone said, why don't you run yourself? But more significant even is our style of esoteric communication, which I maintain is accentuated by TV. In the old days of whistle stopping, candidates could be freer in what they said. For countless TV sound cameras were not recording prints of their words permanently. One could always say that he was misquoted or misunderstood if later challenged by his opponent. However, in the days of TV, one must phrase words thoughtfully, avoid points which can be attacked, avoid careless generalizations, and avoid being specific for fear of the reporters and of one's opponents. The candidate is constantly on guard, and if he relaxes and slips, he may do irreparable damage to his image. This is especially true on the sensitive issues. And if one says that if you've seen one slum, you've seen them all, they'll never let you forget it. Caution, in brief, becomes the key word in discussing issues. The voters, then, are forced to read between the lines and to guess. The choices are there. Alternatives are positive. But one has to be a cryptologist quite often to decipher them. In this we are helped because reporters are experts in political cryptology. What I'm coming to is this point, that the choices are there in elections, however much we sometimes wonder about it. But the American style of campaigning makes it harder to discover them. Will this change? The choice is ours, particularly those of us of the so-called younger generation, which I would identify myself. The point comes up to what style of election campaign do we want? Do we want a personality campaign conducted in esoteric communication, or do we want a campaign on the issues? And I think the choice is ours for the future. And this may be really one of the major decisions you may have to make in the next few years in forcing the kind of campaign do you want, esoteric communication or discussion of issues.